And then we did have time away together. Some of the questions on the quiz are about that, and you have to try and remember which ones are which. There was Port de Norwich, I think was the first one. The first time Jan had ever cooked for a large group of people. And she's probably regretted that day because she's been cooking ever since. Yeah, we have an Irish, some Irish friends, a family, and the mother, when she was alive, she was a wonderful woman from Cork, in her 80s, very demure. She'd come over because they lived in England, and we'd see her. Her name was Queen. We always called her Queenie, and we used to say to her, walk in the kitchen, and we'd say, "Hello, Queenie. How long have you been here? When did you arrive?" She said, "I came a week ago, and I've been in the kitchen ever since." She used the Irish equivalent of the F word, which apparently in Ireland is acceptable. Fecking is acceptable in Ireland. And there was Llangollen, and that's, I think, where the water is, because people went swimming, remember, in the river. And St John's in the Vale with the St John's young people. Steve, I think, it was really more at St John's. So a few people probably remember St John's better. Do you remember Swanwick Conference? Anybody remember that one? Just one or two. What happened was, we were asked by the diocese, as I remember, Colin, to do a presentation to their annual diocesan conference. And many of these slides that we've got, which were taken by Bill at the time, the better ones were done properly, and they were done for the Swanwick Conference. Because what we did was a presentation to all, these geriatric people, it seemed, called the church. And people were crying. I can remember people crying. Oh, John, you were there. You were there because you gave your testimony. And people were crying because they'd never heard young people talk about faith. And then there was Come Together. You remember Come Together? We were in Come Together. We joined the choir. It was one of these things. It was like a travel the country, and local choirs were put together. Some great music came out of that. And then there was Spree 73. See, I'm giving you all the answers to the quiz here. That was in 1973, as you probably gathered. Billy Graham came, and the wonderful photograph here of John. We knew you as Ped then, of course. I love that photograph. I took that photograph. I could have tilted the camera up a little bit, and you'd have seen the great man, Billy Graham. And Ped was wonderful, wonderful. Young people, we can learn so much from young people, can't we? The passion, the enthusiasm, the simplicity. And we lose that, don't we, often, when we allow ourselves to become too complicated. Sadly, when we drew up the list of people to try and remember people, what was shocking was the number of people who died. And over here is on this wall over there are some of these pictures. And I'm sorry if we've not got everybody, because we didn't have photos of everybody we knew who'd passed on. But yeah, I guess take a moment just to reflect on your memories of those people. And we were talking, Rob and I were talking about, Rob Blundell, about Marjorie Grindrod. And she was an elderly woman who somehow found her way to the upper room. And she used to come, and she had a heart of gold. She was just so lovely. And then, do you remember old Tom, a man who lived on his own? I had to fumigate my car afterwards because he unfortunately was infested, but he was such a lovely man, and the warmth that he received from young people. And Uncle Ted, do you remember Uncle Ted? Ted Pearson used to come and do Bible study. And Eric, who can't be here today, because sadly Eric was going to do the photos actually, but he was really keen to come, but he contacted me last night and said he'd gone down with the flu and he's in bed, so he sends us all his best wishes. But I remember Uncle Ted used to say, Eric used to have a go at him about some of his interpretation of the Bible, and Uncle Ted say, well, I think you're really more of a humanist than But he was great, actually, Uncle Ted. But wonderful days, eh? So the story went on because there was a mission in 73 with St John's. the challenge was always, how do you get young people who have no background in church to go to what can be a very boring thing, can't it? The church service in the Church of England. But actually, I think we managed to square that circle to avoid the church within the church syndrome. And there were links with Kingsway and other fellowships. And we did practical projects like paper collection and restoring furniture and all that sort of stuff. Doing the roof. Andrew Thompson, married to Penny, told me he spent probably over 100 hours on this roof in the last 15, 20 years. Well, I think many of us spent many hours on that roof too, trying to fix it. Post Green was a community we got involved with, and they were a teaching community. So there's just a quick canter through some of my memories. What we'd like to do is get you to think about some of your memories. Where's Penny? Penny, would you like to come and explain? You want me to? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. So use the blank sheets of paper, and then if you've got a memory, just a funny story. My favourite story, and I'll finish on this, is, and I've told this, John, I'm so sorry, I've told this story many, many times, actually. And this is the story, I call you Ped, because that's how we remember you, as Ped. Ped, we used to meet in the upper room up there, and the church had removable chairs in those days, but it was a tiled floor. And Jan had a dog called Hector. Do you remember Hector? And he was a Christian. He used to attend all the worship meetings, and sometimes he used to leave his own mark here. And sometimes we didn't spot it. And then dear Jessie Fraser the next day would say, "Vicar, there's a parcel here." And one day I came into church, and Ped was he was obviously waiting for me, quite anxious. He said, "Ken, we've got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "We're in trouble. That dog." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, the dog left And I said, "Well, who are we in trouble with?" He said, that fella over there. I said, "Which fella?" He said, the Pharisee. I said, "The Pharisee?" I started laughing. I said, "Is it a wind-up?" He said, No, he's deadly serious. Ped was deadly serious. He said, "No, that guy over there, the Pharisee, one of the Pharisees." I said, You mean Jim, the church warden?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "He's a Pharisee, isn't he?" And such was because Ped had never, you'd read the Bible, so that Jesus had problems with some people. They were the officials of the church, and they were called Pharisees. So why on the... He wasn't being funny, he just was, he thought he was a Pharisee. So we went over and told Jim, who's passed away, his picture's up there on the top right. He what? No, well, Jim laughed. I mean, he was great. He just thought it was a hoot, actually. But there was maybe a message there. I don't know. But, so you may have funny little stories, just something, a memory, a person maybe, because we might have missed people. And then you see this little blank. It's marked out by it's the artwork coming down the wall there. The sort of random nature of the stream flowing down the wall. If you just post your pictures up there, that would be great. Thank you.